Well, we're going to try and get both sides of the conflict tonight, but we start with a pro-Israeli group that says that international media is once again conflating the issues. To tell us more, we are joined by Daniel Pomerantz, the CEO of Honest Reporting. Daniel, thank you for joining us this evening. Before we get into the questions, I believe you have just been moved to a bomb shelter. What's going on around you?
That's correct. I'm in Tel Aviv right now. I came to our Tel Aviv office to do this interview. But before the interview could begin, the air raid sirens started sounding, and we were evacuated to this bomb shelter here. Right now, we hear rocket fire above us. We hear booms. Some of it is the missile defense shield, the Iron Dome, and some of it is the rockets itself. There are no military targets in this area. This is like firing rockets on New York City. There's no reason for this rocket fire whatsoever except to attempt to harm civilians.
What then do you think the media is getting wrong?
Well, the narrative in the media has become that this all started because Israel attacked worshipers on Ramadan. That's absolutely not the case. There was a dispute over an eviction of some Palestinians living in a home that they had lived in for generations. Before that, Jews had lived in that same home for generations. And both sides were feeling the pain. Both sides worked to find a compromise and to try and make peace. Then the Palestinian Authority government threatened the Palestinians with physical violence if they were to accept a compromise, forcing them to not accept this compromise. We have a situation where people on the ground want to make peace and are trying to and yearn and feel pain to make peace. And yet we have the Palestinian Authority government threatening its own Palestinian people to not make peace. In the midst of all that, Hamas, which wants to appear relevant and which is an extremist militant group, started firing rockets indiscriminately at Jerusalem, including at all of the holy sites, such as the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, the Al-Aqsa Mosque, and the Western Wall, and now at Tel Aviv as well. That's the story of what happened. It's a story of people who are trying to make peace and extremist groups who are interfering with that. It may sound like a crazy thing to say, but I don't think peace is that hard. We just have to stop interfering with it.
Let's talk about the numbers, though. 28 Palestinian casualties, including 10 children, versus 2 Israeli deaths. Does it not become difficult to argue that Israel is not using excessive force?
Well, first of all, those numbers are brought by the Gaza Ministry of Health, which is an arm of Hamas. Hamas is on the terror lists of almost every government in the Western world, the US, UK, European Union. It's not a credible group. It's like getting numbers from ISIS. And at least some of those numbers we've already seen were from rockets that Hamas fired that landed in Gaza. One of them killed 3 children. Roughly a third of Hamas's indiscriminate rocket fire lands right back in Gaza. And Palestinian people are the ones who really suffer from this the most. Israel's strikes are all targeted at military equipment, but Hamas works to hide that equipment in civilian areas, which is a double war crime. They fire at civilians from civilian areas. And right now they're firing not at Israeli military equipment, but simply at Tel Aviv. It's a tragedy that people are dying, but it's a tragedy that Hamas has created for both Jews and Muslims alike.
Daniel Pomerantz, CEO of Honest Reporting. Stay safe, Daniel. I know that you are in that bomb shelter. We hope that you are okay.